And welcome to another episode of Your Next Favorite Movie. I am your host, Josh G. And today I am joined by journalist Ashley Rose Nova. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going? It's good to be here.
Yeah. So I know you do at least wrestling wise, but I don't know. I know you do some others. I know you have a blog. So why don't you talk a little bit about what all you write about?
I've been in wrestling media for over 6 years. I write, I very rarely write reviews. I do a lot like history stuff, analytics, basically boring stuff in wrestling media. I don't do scoops. Sometimes I do news. It really varies what it is and what year of my career. I also stream. I do have a personal blog now, so thanks for pointing that out. Mainly, I do a lot of Impact Wrestling interviews and covering Impact now. So that's the only wrestling media that I handle now. And I also do esports, fighting game community stuff.
All right, sounds good. So this was just one of those random things where I saw you say something about your favorite movie. And when I see that, sometimes I'll just ask the person, do you want to come on and talk about it? You said yes. So here we are.
Yeah, I'm totally cool with it, man. If you've been following me, a while, everyone knows I always talk about different things. I talk about movies, I talk about music, video games, anime, pretty much whatever. But yeah, that is how you reached out to me, was because of my favorite movie. One of my favorite movies.
Right. So and that's where we're going back. Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange. All right. So why don't you tell us when you first saw Clockwork Orange?
Well, it's a little unconventional. The first time I saw Clockwork Orange, I probably shouldn't have seen it, but I did. I was 17 in high school when I first saw Clockwork Orange. Very not the norm of a film for people to like to begin with. It is a kind of a unique subculture and group, I would say, that's into A Clockwork Orange. But I would say roughly around there. And, for everyone, I didn't read any of the questions. I'm sorry, Josh. So I'm kind of winging it here, but yeah, that's roughly around the time. I also, enjoy other movies, and I'm a Kubrick's fan in general. But Clockwork Orange is probably one of my it is one of my favorite movies, but at the same time, it's like not my first Kubrick's film. My first Kubrick's film I ever saw was The Shining.
Yeah,
Which
that's
everyone's
more
introduction, I think.
right. Yeah, I would agree with that. Okay, so you talked about it's unconventional for people to like this. So what is it you like about it? What is it that draws you to this movie?
As far as with that movie, storytelling, the visual presentation of it, not necessarily, what the story is about. As far as when I mean visual storytelling, I mean the aspects of how it's filmed, the vibrance of the colors that are used to narrate this completely violent story that kind of turns into something different. The inhumane aspects of trying to control humanity, if what something is right or if something's wrong when it comes to a person. The ability to lose freedom of choice.
All right, so I'm glad you brought that up because it's actually, for anyone that hasn't seen this, tell them what A Clockwork Orange is about.
Well, A Clockwork Orange is based off of a small book. Let's start that there. About a teenage boy that is really, how do we say this politely without saying certain words that you can't say on YouTube? Very into violence, highly articulate, is young, is a leader of his gang. We'll describe it that way. And they get into a lot of trouble. The main character does get caught. He is set up by his gang, of course, which they're called droogs in the book.
Yep.
They are called droogs, and they're also called droogs in the film because it's a mixture of two languages, which is created NADSAT. So at that point, he does, go to prison. He does get charged with murder. And that is the beginning of the full story, which leads into what the title is, A Clockwork Orange. It is basically described mechanical, someone to be not free-willed in an organic state, which is an orange. So that's where the title comes from. And basically he goes through a series of experimental testing to control his violent urges. That's the basis of the whole story. I guess that's a good way to describe it.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with that. So you are familiar with the book? You've read the book?
I have read the book. Yes, I have numerous times.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought the thing interesting about the book was that it had its own glossary in the back so that you could understand everything. All right, so we don't go into complete spoilery detail on this show. So I'm going to ask this question since you didn't look at the questions, so you're going to have a hard time coming up with this on the fly probably, but if you had been able to get a sequel to this, what would you like to, well, actually, in a way, it kind of sets it up at the end where a sequel could go, but where would you take a sequel if you got to put it in the 70s, not like now, or if you wanted to bring it forward and do one now, all these years later, that'd be up to you.
Well, it always intrigued me that they never really used the 21st chapter in the book, from the book to the movie, which is where Alex decides he wants to grow up, have, well, he's already an adult, like a young adult in the book, but in the aspect of the film, they never show it. It's just, it stops before the 21st chapter. So if I wanted to do a sequel or wanted a sequel, I would want it to start towards the end of the 21st chapter, as in how his child would be, and would he be similar? And is he similar? And he probably will be.
Well, that makes sense. You're right. I always forget that there was another chapter. I've only read the book once, so I haven't gone back to the book very often. But all right, so now we go to the next part, and this is the part that I don't know. This would be a hard one to do, but if they were to remake this film, who would you put in some of these roles?
Oh man,
that's why I send the question so you have time to think about this kind of stuff.
No, it's fine. Even if thinking about it, it would take me a while. If we were talking about maybe like a few years ago, I would say like Paul Bettany as Alex. That would be my pick, because I saw him in Gangster #1 with Malcolm McDowell, and I thought that the transition between the both of them was very like close. If we're talking now, I would go with probably one of the Skarsgårds in that role.
Okay. Yeah. Probably. Would you go? I guess if you're gonna go young, you gotta go Bill, right?
You gotta go with Bill. I think Bill would totally crush it, completely crush it, man. And the rest of the casting, it could be anyone.
Yeah. You really just got to get Alex.
They're background characters at the end of the day. They're just part of the story. But yeah, that's who I would probably go with. Okay. We're probably going to go with Bill. And I honestly can't think of anyone else that would be solid for that role.
Okay. So, do you think this movie could be remade in this time? Let me ask that question because that's a tough one, I think.
With the way the world is currently and the way media is intaked, I think it could be remade. However, there's going to be a lot of things cut out. just because it was the film when it came out at the time was a very controversial film. It was banned in a lot of places. Some places couldn't even get the film, so much so that they were making their own similar versions in different countries. So if it is a possibility for it to get remade. However, it would be highly edited and censored. I think even to this day, I still think that that movie still triggers a lot of people in a way.
I can't disagree with that at all. So, all right. Getting here, I want you to give one final pitch to someone who hasn't seen this on why they should take a chance on this movie and give it a shot.
A final pitch. I wouldn't. Have you ever heard of this film? What film? A Clockwork Orange. You ever heard of this? A young man who is wiser beyond his years. And why would you not want to see the most controversial film of that decade? With beautiful scenery, beautiful cinematography from one of the greatest directors of all time, Stanley Kubrick's. That's as good as I can do it.
Hey, I mean, I think that works. There you go. All right. I normally keep these pretty short and to the point. So why don't you tell everybody where they can find you online, direct them to your work so they can actually check it all out, all the good stuff.
Yeah, well, you can go to TWM Plus. That is twm.news. It's originally a wrestling website that turned into also an edition of pop culture. You can find me at my website at rose-nova.com. You can find everything I've done, well, almost everything, because a lot of the sites that I used to work for closed down. But you can find the majority of my work there. You can find my stream there. You can find my blog there. You can find my merchandise there. You can find interviews I've done, and as well as articles. Let's see, what else? You can find me on Twitter, A Rose CPE, Charlie Papa Echo. So that's Culture Plus Entertainment. Same thing with Instagram. You can find me on Slasher TV as well. So that's all on there. And if you ever have any questions, just tweet at me. I usually answer pretty rapidly, or the best that I can. Do you have any questions for me in general, being that the movie, we talked about the movie shortly, briefly?
Yeah, that's pretty much how this goes. These are, some of them are longer than others, but some of them are short. That's pretty much it. I just want to comment, is that Darcy sitting in the background?
Yes, it is.
Awesome.
That's my girl.
From Fright Rags?
Yeah, I got the bundle.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, well, because they sold it in a bundle, Yes, it is.
Oh my god, I am obsessed with this movie.
That is awesome.
I was like, gotta support my girl. There.
Hey, I don't blame you. I didn't pull the trigger. I thought about it. I remember seeing them go on sale. I've actually had Ben, the owner of Fright Rags, on the show a couple of times. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, they got some cool stuff there. I also have the shirts there from there, and I also have a couple of like horror shirts that they released, but they're like limited. So yeah, I do shop there too. I shop at a lot of random places. So I do shop there. But yeah, like I said, if you have any additional questions, I do not mind answering them. If it's not just about the movie, I'm totally cool with it.
I mean, what? Okay, I'll just ask you about how you got into the wrestling. Did you just grow up a wrestling fan?
Well, I grew up in pro wrestling, but actually I was originally a comic book artist.
Really?
Yeah, I kind of got into wrestling media by accident.
Okay, how does that? I want to hear that story. How does that work?
Okay, so I went to art school first of all. Graduated everything. I graduated with graphic design and sequential art. So sequential art, if no one knows what that is, that basically means I'm a that's a fancy term for I draw comic book panels and panels for films. That's all that means. That's literally what that is. My graphic design degree was because I was working trying to learn lettering, comic book lettering. And they use a lot of graphic design like programs, like they use like Adobe, like they don't necessarily, they use Illustrator, the majority of them. So I was kind of transitioning into that. And I had a basic graphics job too after I graduated college. And I was doing indie horror comics. At the time, I just went under Ashley Rose because that was just common. So I did a lot of indie comics, like anthologies for like web comics and stuff like that. And I just penciled and I had my own inker. After that, I kind of got really burnt out, very, very burnt out. I kind of just stopped delivering pages, you know, and which happens, you know. It's a tough job, I will say that. Any type of comic book job, believe it or not, it's incredibly tough because you have people you have to work with, and it goes through your writer, and then it goes to your editor, and then it goes up and down. So a lot of things change. So it was, you know, it was hard for me to get the hang of it when I started. I started pretty decent, and I also did like pinup art, like not in the aspect of like pinup model art, but I mean like art that would just go on one solid page in the comic book. Just the standard one-page art is what I did too. That's what I started doing. And I kind of got burnt out, and I used to tweet about wrestling a lot too. And my fantasy sports talk, which is not around, but Steve's still around. My fantasy Steve, MF Steve, he's still around doing his own thing. He had a site called My Fantasy Sports Talk that was open for a long time. And he asked me, he's like, hey, you know, I see you talk about wrestling. I see that, you know, that you were into comics and stuff. You want to come and try this writing thing for 205 Live, which is at the time in NXT. And I'm like, I mean, I don't think anyone cares about my opinions about wrestling, but yeah. So I'll give it a shot. You know, I'm not drawing anymore. I'm not doing art anymore because, you know, the lifestyle of an artist is difficult. I'm going to be honest with you. It is. I chose that life. So I was like, all right, let's go. So I started there, and then gradually I started going into other, like covering other wrestling. And then I switched platforms. I went to Body Slam Net for a long time. And then I went to Steel Chair Magazine. So I was printed in press and magazine for a while. Then I went to like Daily DDT, and I'm still here, you know. Started learning more, you know, just learning more about everything as far as like in-ring psychology, ring awareness, the purpose of why, you know, tag team wrestling is set up the way it is, the purpose of tag team wrestling, the purpose of different things. So I started educating myself, going to listening and watching like seminars from a lot of people in the industry. So I expanded my craft, and I'm still here. So now I'm doing Impact, and I'm doing my own thing. Like as far as I'm doing like Impact interviews for TWM, rundowns, shows like that. I'm doing my own thing, and I couldn't be happier.
Oh.
So that's how I accidentally ended up in wrestling media.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I actually had on a different guest who would just tweet about horror a lot and ended up getting written in Fangoria from it because Phil Noble Jr. noticed her. So
Oh, really?
yeah, she got to be. She doesn't do much. She's their teen correspondent. She's a teen correspondent for Fangoria.
Oh, that's
Although
cool.
she's got to be. She was 19. She's got to be 20 by now. That was last year. So I don't know if she's going to still have that job, but I don't know how that
Who
works.
knows, man? I've been thinking about like expanding out more into the horror community too, because I tweet about horror too, and I interact with the community. But I'm doing my own thing now, so it's kind of like a weird thing to like look back and how I grew up around wrestling. Like it was just something natural to me, and like my whole life was like music, video games, work, wrestling. So here I am.
So like just everybody in your family liked wrestling? Like you said you grew up in wrestling. It's like
Yeah. My family comes from Mexico, so they were really into like lucha libre and stuff like that, which, ended up transitioning through like my mother, my father. So I grew up watching wrestling. Like I can't pinpoint a time frame because it was just something I always watched and went to. It was just a family thing we did all the time.
oh, okay.
When I was a child. So
Well, I have a feeling I'm older than you, but I know exactly when I got into wrestling, and that was April of 1996. So
you have a feeling you're older than me. I'm pretty old, dude.
I don't know about that, but
I am. I'm in my 30s.
so am I. So maybe we're closer than I thought, but
Yeah. No, I'm pretty old. It's known I'm pretty old. So it is what it is, man. But yeah, that's kind of what my life was all the time. So
I can't say I've stuck with it. I have not been into wrestling for a while, so I'm not. I didn't even know Impact was still a thing. I remember TNA, but I did not know Impact was still a thing. So
yeah, 20 years.
that's crazy. That madman Jeff Jarrett, I tell you.
Yeah, no, we don't. Yeah, don't worry, he's not there. He's at
No,
WWE Creative, I think.
Rumor says he's about to start his own promotion with Conrad Thompson, but that's just a rumor. So
I don't know. I heard. Let me check. I heard he was working at the E for either production or something. I don't cover it, so I don't care. But if I recall in my press chat, he's working at the E.
huh, okay.
You never know with that man. Never know what he's up to. Good for him, though. Good for him.
Yeah. All right, let's go wrap this one up. You can follow me at linktr.ee/ynfmoviepod. That'll have the social media, podcast platforms, YouTube channel, my letterbox, all that stuff. And I'll be back with a new guest and a new movie next week. Till then, you guys take care, and I will talk to you next time.